soul. I am the soul. I am that I am. Visualize your whole body disintegrate and disappear. All the cells and organs in your body disintegrate and disappear. And with that, all the discomfort, pain, disintegrate and disappear. And what remains is just brilliant white light. Inhale slowly and deeply. Exhale slowly and deeply. Inhale and exhale. Now bring your awareness higher to your thoughts and your emotions. Just observe each and every thought that comes to your mind and fades away. Mentally say, I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. Thoughts and emotions are just products of the soul. I am the soul. I am that I am. Visualize all your thoughts and emotions disintegrate and disappear. All your fears, worries, frustrations, grief disintegrate and disappear. And what remains is just brilliant white light. Inhale slowly and deeply. Exhale slowly and deeply. Inhale and exhale. Now smile to your heart, smile to your crown, and mentally say to the Supreme Being, to our spiritual teacher and all the spiritual teachers, all the holy gurus, holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, thank you for all of your priceless blessings, for your divine light, divine love and divine power, divine guidance, help and protection, inner healing and physical healing, good health and happiness. And thank you for bringing all of us here together to learn and grow. Thank you in full faith. Inhale slowly, inhale all the blessings. Exhale slowly and be aware of your whole body. Inhale slowly. Exhale slowly. Inhale slowly, inhale all the blessings. And when you are comfortable, gently open your eyes with a big, big smile. Namaste and welcome again to the session. So before we start, let me ask, how many of you are dealing with loneliness or spiritual emptiness? How many of you or have dealt with it before, experienced spiritual emptiness, sadness, grief, loneliness? Please put yes in the chat so we know how many have experienced this before or you are struggling with it right now. Before we begin, there is no judgment. I also myself started my spiritual practice because of spiritual emptiness. So this is a safe space just to share, to talk, to ask, and grow together. So please feel free to write in the chat, yes, many times. So the universal struggle of loneliness. Actually, loneliness is a common challenge of our modern life, and many people are seeking deeper connections. There are so many people who have been experiencing like loneliness and not really superficial connections, not really deep connections. Sometimes this is originated in a spiritual emptiness. Like the reason why I started my spiritual journey in 2007 was because of a spiritual emptiness, which felt like depression, sadness. Despite having everything in my life, friends, family, I was studying one of the best universities in my country. Despite having everything, I was feeling empty inside. And it was later on I came to know that it was because of lack of spiritual energy. And after I started doing meditations, it could heal. But sometimes also it that causes spirituality and growth. As Master Choa says, sometimes the spiritual path is lonely. Your spiritual progress depends on your clarity of thought and sharpness of mind. Do not get stuck, do not freeze, keep on moving. Many of us, especially if you have been in the spiritual path for some time, you may have experienced that at some point in life you lost a lot of your friends, or your friends, community changed, or sometimes you started to have a lot of inner experiences and you didn't have anyone to share it with. So you started to feel lonely inside. So this is what Master Choa is talking about, which is sometimes the spiritual path is lonely because not everyone is into, meditation, and like everyone is going out having fun, but then it's not really vibing with you anymore. So you start losing some people. Now, there is also a difference between loneliness and solitude, which we are going to talk about. One isolates while the other one awakens. Now, before we move deeper into it, yes, there is loneliness. Many of us here, as a lot of you put yes in the chat, have experienced this or are still struggling with loneliness. But there is a truth that there is only oneness, okay? As Albert Einstein says, a human being is a part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. We experience ourselves, our thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of our consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from the prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. So in this session, we are actually going to talk about the importance of separation first, because it's also an important part of evolution. And then how this separation, how solitude can lead to oneness and to embracing the whole, everyone, all the creatures, every person and every being. And also Master Choa says, through the regular practice of meditation on twin hearts, your degree of connectedness and oneness with your higher soul is increased. The size of your spiritual cord becomes bigger. You're able to tap your higher soul for inner guidance, inner peace, and inner power. And once we actually activate the crown is called the center for universal love. Then we start experiencing that love for everyone, and then we start to experience glimpse of oneness with all. Now we will talk about it because we have also experienced this, and we are still in the process of reaching to that, feeling of love for all. But there is a lot to talk about. So let's start with what is the difference between solitude and loneliness. And Arko will guide us through this part.
Thank you, Hengame. Namaste, everyone. It's a very interesting thing that the solitude or loneliness segment is, we take it turnwise. The quote that Hengame wrote sometime back, 2 slides back, about the circle of compassion, about Albert Einstein, there's a key element over there is that we think that we are limited in time and space. We experience ourselves. Question to every one of you. For those of you who live with other people, who share space with other people, sometimes it happens that you're talking to your partner, but it feels like the message that you're communicating and the message that he's receiving are completely different. Okay, that he or she is receiving are completely different. Have you experienced this? Now, I'm saying this is with the context of home. If I ask you this question in context to office, your boss has said something, or if you're the boss, you've explained that to your teammate, and then they come back and you're like, I asked for apples and you've given me oranges. What are you talking about? Happened, right? Has happened, all right. Okay, and I just happen to know that many people over here are running their offices, and I've been to their offices, so probably not the best example to take at this point. And then you're sitting at office and you're working and you're crying and so, I am so alone, nobody understands me. Have you had that moment? You've had that moment, right? I am so alone, nobody gets me. How many times are you guilty of saying the statement, nobody gets me, nobody understands me, I am so alone? Yes? Now, some of you are writing yes with multiple S's. So I know that, yeah, that's something that really resonates with you. So keep this one statement in mind, that we are in part limited in time and space, and we experience our thoughts and our feelings as something separated from the rest, okay? Something separated from the rest. Okay, now let's go back to the solitude or loneliness slide that we're looking at. All right. You've been to the movies? Show of hands, or yes or no. You've been to the movies, just write movies. For those of you who've been to the theater, like you've got, I don't know, Avengers Endgame going on in that moment where Captain America lifts up Thor's hammer and then he's worthy. You've seen that part? I hope you've seen that part, please. I'm a nerd, I'm a dork, I'm a geek, and a lot of my references are very comic book references, because where else except comics books do you see somebody where they're putting their hand out and a beam of light goes out and some healing happens, right? Right? That's just the glamorous part. We do the hard work, right? We move our hands and we do the cleansing part. They just do the energizing side of it. So yeah, lots of comic book references. So in these movies, in these things, there is a feeling of shared community. Something happens on screen, the hero meets his lover and they hold hands and they kiss and everyone's like, "Aw," happens. You notice that? Notice that? All right. For those of you who spend 23 hours on Instagram scrolling reels, any of you who do that? Instagram, Reels, okay, yeah, YouTube or TikTok. You've seen something and then you forward that reel to a friend of yours and you forward it to 5 friends, and next thing you know, you haven't spoken to them in 3 months, but you've exchanged 7,000 reels already. Has that happened? Any of you familiar what I'm talking about, or you see your kids talk about? Right. If you do that, just write reels. We'll know what you're talking about. Okay. You're alone. You are sitting alone in your bedroom or your office, and you're just by yourself. No one is really talking to you. No one is really communicating with you, but you are talking, you are connecting to other people. Solitude, this is what happens when other people are not constantly around you. There is a deeper operation of thought. So you're sitting by yourself, but you're not alone. Make sense? You are sitting by yourself. I am sitting here in this room by myself. I have solitude, but I'm connected to each and every one of you. We are connected spiritually. We are connected through Zoom. We are connected electronically. We are connected, right? Make sense? Agree? If you agree with me, just give me a thumbs up or a yes. Right now, chances are you are alone by yourself in a room that you're not disturbed, because soulful sessions by Hengame and Orko, you're not supposed to be disturbed. You need that personal time, right? That's solitude. Many mystics, many spiritual people, they have testified that some of their most deepest encounters with truth, with the oneness, with divine, with higher energies, they happen not when you're out in the market or when you're dealing with people, but they've happened in the silence, in the quietness of themselves. So when you have solitude, is when you're connected, but you're not alone. This is something which is spoken of in the Arhatic Dhyan, which is one of the higher meditations of pranic healing of Arhatic Yoga, where Master Choa Kuk Sui says that awareness, that quote is there on the lower part of your screen, awareness helps you listen to the subtle voice, the whisper. That's the key word here, the whisper of your higher soul. You become aware of your Buddha nature, you become aware of your soul. Listening is connected with awareness. Now, notice this word here, the whisper of your higher soul. Your higher soul will not be like, "Hey, John, hey, Jack, hey, buddy, how are you doing? Hello, let's meditate." That's not what your higher soul is going to do. Any of your higher souls talk to you like that? Do you get calls from your higher soul saying, "Hello, meditation time"? No, you don't, right? It's a subtle, quiet thing. It's a very soft thing, the whisper of your higher soul. If you're going to be shouting all the time, internally, mentally, if you're going to be shouting all the time, how will you hear the whisper of your higher soul? And for that, we need to go beyond the mind. It's not just the mind, beyond the mind. So let's look at the next slide, okay? And here I'm going to go a little bit into some theory over here, referencing in particular the field of noetic sciences. Noetic science is a field that studies the relationship between consciousness and the physical world. You have your consciousness, right? You are aware. So you can say, "I am in a session." Is your physical body in the session with you? Yes, it is. You are using your physical body. You are using your eyes and your ears, hopefully only those two organs, to get a sense of this workshop. And if you're using your sense of smell and taste and touch for this workshop, I don't think I want to know about the details of how you're making that happen. If you're using any higher faculties like extrasensory perception, well, that's what the noetic sciences talk about, because they're talking about investigating phenomenon like intuition, mind-body connection, and the influence of thought on reality. How many of you have heard this statement, thoughts become things? Have you heard of this one? Thoughts become things? Yeah, if you have, just give me a yes on the screen, right? Thoughts become things, right? Your thoughts become your reality. You've probably heard this particular one. Now, the potential influence of thought on reality. Now we're going a little bit of the theory part. Noesis means inner wisdom, direct knowing. Direct knowing, which chakra is connected with direct knowing? We know the heart chakra is connected with love. We know there's a certain chakra which is connected with direct knowing. Any guesses as to what that chakra is? You're right. That's absolutely right. This particular chakra, the crown chakra, it explores how your experiences, your consciousness might interact with the physical world. Now, let's take the example. How many of you live in your own houses? How many of you live in your own homes, in your own apartments? Okay. How many of you had to build that home and apartment? How many of you had to build that home and apartment? Now, chances are that you first went to an architect, right? You went to an architect, then an interior designer. That architect took your ideas, took your thoughts and words, turned it into a two-dimensional blueprint, turned that into a three-dimensional diagram, which then became a fourth-dimensional reality. So from the seed of a thought, became a flat piece of paper, became a three-dimensional model, and now you're living in it. So your thought literally became a thing. You can think of things and they materialize. Agree? Agree or disagree? Fully agree, right? So that goes to show that if we think we are alone, we become alone. If we think that there's always a connection, whether to the soul, whether to everybody around us, we're in a field of energy, then that also becomes real. So according to the noetic sciences, they argue very, very convincingly, there's a really interesting series of studies going on about this, that consciousness is not just limited to your brain or to your nerves, okay, to your synaptic or your neural tissues. Research into NDEs or near-death experiences, telepathy, remote viewing. This was a project by the CIA, by Russia during the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They indicate that we have our consciousness is like a field. Now, how many of you have heard this? A field of energy that you are inside. It surrounds us and interpenetrates us. How many of you have heard of this? How many of you have heard of this, that there is a field of energy that surrounds us and interpenetrates us? If you have heard of this term or this word, in the chat, write down the word aura, A-U-R-A. Heard this before? Pranic healers, have you heard this term before? If you have, write down in the chat, aura, if you know this word. This basically tells us that our consciousness is not limited to our brains or to our minds. It surrounds us. So sitting over here, we can consciously have an impact on other people in our energetic field. So for those on the spiritual path, this is a confirmation that your experience, your life, your essence, your soul, it's not limited to a single phenomenon inside the body. You are part of a much larger system. How's that for an experience? How's that for a concept? We'll do some experiments and take you forward for the next ones. But for that particular part, let's move on to the next one, which I'll request Hengame to kindly talk about.
Thank you so much, Arko. So we just discussed that we are all connected. Okay, so separation is an illusion, but it's also an important part of evolution. Now we will talk about involution and evolution, the gift of separation, and then the illusion of separation, why we need to have separation in order to evolve. So based on theosophy, spiritual journey is a twofold process of involution and evolution. Now, involution refers to spirit descending into matter, consciousness limiting itself through denser forms, moving from pure spiritual essence into mind, emotion, and eventually the physical body. This is not a fall, but a necessary stage for spirit to experience separation, limitation, and individuality. So you may have heard in esoteric sciences, they say we are like a drop of water from the ocean, and then we will go back to the ocean. So To experience life, to learn and grow, and to develop our skills, we need to develop the sense of I, or individualization. So first, that consciousness, energy with consciousness, descend into matter, become denser and denser. First into the mental body, and then emotional body, eventually physical body, gain a physical body, and then start separating itself from the rest, from that ocean, that drop of water. To gain experience, to understand what is I, and gain control over the bodies. And then the path of evolution starts once the individualization happens. And the evolution is the return path, where the soul gradually awakens, refines, and expands its awareness, moving back toward unity with the spirit, yet now enriched by the experiences gained through matter. So in this descent part, when we are becoming denser and denser, selfishness, or the strong sense of I, plays an essential role. Because Theosophy explains that without separation and self-focus, there could be no true individualization and progress. First, we need to understand what is me and what is not me. What are my strengths, and weaknesses, and how I can change the weaknesses into strength, how I can gain control over my different bodies. That happens in every initiation. Like in spiritual initiation level 1, we gain control over the physical body, and then initiation level 2, emotional body, initiation level 3, mental body. So it's like gaining control over our different bodies, and then we move towards oneness. So for that, first we need to separate ourselves from the rest, to study ourselves, and to actually gain control over ourselves. By learning to identify with the separate self, the soul develops self-consciousness and a clear sense of its own existence. This is a crucial stage before one can actually transcend to oneness. So first, from that one, we become an individual, we separate ourselves, but we gain control, we gain consciousness, we understand, we grow. And once we grow, we go back again to one, but this time we bring whatever we have learned to that whole, consciousness. So first, separation is a gift. Separation develops individuality and self-identity, which is necessary stage before recognizing oneness. Without separation, there is no true self-awareness or conscious choice. This stage is essential because without first knowing oneself as distinct, there can be no true awareness of choice, responsibility, or growth. So separation gives the experience of contrast, what is me and what is not me, which allows consciousness to awaken. Only after this stage of individualization can one genuinely recognize oneness, not as a vague merging, but as a conscious union chosen with awareness. Okay, now this is not really a good example, but at least we understand a bit. Like when you just finish your study and then you want to start working, first you start becoming an intern in a company. So basically whatever your supervisor tells you, you do. Once you reach a point that you have learned already what you're supposed to learn, then you gain you get promoted to, like, now you can lead a group. And when you actually open up a business yourself, like you separate yourself now from that company, from the group, and then you start something on your own, then you really learn. Like before I start Prana World, before we start Prana World, I was only volunteering in Pranic Healing Foundation of Malaysia. Of course, there was a lot of learning, but when I started Prana World, then only there was a lot more growth, understanding, and I think my evolution was super fast at that time because there were a lot of things that I had to deal with myself, and I learned so much. So again, not a proper example, but at least it gives us some understanding why we need to separate, because that separateness gives us understanding about ourselves, our strength, our potential, and then we develop those strengths, potentials. We evolve faster, and then we make a choice now to bring whatever we know and use it to help humanity. Not like, if you are familiar with the school of Arhatic Yoga, which is developed by Master Choa Kok Sui and is and consists of very advanced meditations and purifications to accelerate the evolution of the soul. The whole purpose of Arhatic Yoga is to develop intelligence, sharp, intelligent, good-hearted, willful disciples who become great world servants. So means the whole purpose is to be more intelligent, more loving, more willful, to give back to the society. But before we give back to the society properly, first we need to develop ourselves. And that is the whole purpose of spiritual evolution and the practices that we do. Now, once that is achieved, then we will realize that separation is just an illusion. Theosophy insists that separateness is Maya, an illusion born of material perception. While bodies are distinct and personalities manifold, the foundation is one, the one life, the eternal current from which all individualities arise. So we just discussed that we are all connected, we are all one. When we actually experience that oneness, we realize that whatever is separating us is just matter, is just, our different bodies. But we are all one in essence. So this illusion of isolation is the source of suffering. Once we let go of this isolation, we feel like connected and one with everyone. I remember, I heard this story, I think it's about Shridi Sai Baba, that he was thanking one of the disciples. If I'm wrong, someone please put in the chat the correct version of the story. But based on my memory, Shridi Sai Baba was thanking one of the disciples that thank you for feeding me, thank you for giving me water. I think it's the same for Christ also. And then this disciple was thinking, when did we do that? And then he said, when you were feeding the dog, you were actually feeding me. When you were giving water to the dog, you were actually giving water to me. Because in that level, the spiritual teachers are one with everyone. So whatever we are doing to others, we are actually doing, to them. And when we realize this, then we also realize karma better. Because we are all one, so whatever we are doing to others, we are basically doing it to ourselves, and it comes back. So life is one, and to be truly learned is to perceive its unity beneath the veils of multiplicity. Now, with this, let's talk about it from a scientific perspective now, from theosophy to science. And Arko, please guide us through this text.
Thank you, Engame. When I saw that this was my slide coming up, the science of oneness, and I have to talk about quantum entanglement, all right? Ooh, quantum entanglement. I was thinking, if there was an example before, or there was some sort of an example on the screen that I could use to illustrate that this is happening. And then it was like, I was thinking, what example can I give to make this easy to understand? And then almost as if we are connected, Hengame gives the example of Shirdi Sai Baba, right? What a coincidence. And the beauty of that story is that people had fed the dog. There was a dog that had come to some people and they fed the dog. And so I'm just expanding on the story that Hengame said, when they went to the teacher and said that you didn't come to our place, and he said, no, I came to your place and I got fed this rice and this chapati and this roti and this dal and stuff, something like that. The students were shocked. They're saying, teacher, you did not come. He said, well, I was there when that dog went over there at a particular time, say 1:35 p.m. When the dog went there at lunchtime and you fed the dog, you fed me. Now that is quantum entanglement, because what's happening in one location is happening at the exact same time in another location. Spiritually, there is only oneness. Physically, there's separation. It looks like separation. The teacher is spiritually one with all. The teacher is spiritually one with all, and therefore they're spiritually one with all forms of life. The crystals, the plants, the animals, the beings of nature. Oh, Hengame, what an example. I was thinking here and you picked that up, and now this becomes a thing. Quantum entanglement in terms of physics is exactly that. When particles interact, they remain interacted, they remain correlated irrespective of the distance. I mean, you've experienced this yourselves. You think of a friend and then the friend calls you. Or in case of the healers, you message somebody saying, hey, how are things? And they said, how did you know I was thinking about you? You've experienced this, right? Healers, those who've been meditating, if you have, just write something in the comments. Let's write spooky. Just write spooky, because that's what Albert Einstein calls this. He calls this instant oneness as spooky action at a distance. Spooky action at a distance. Like, I was thinking about you. I'm here. It's like having your own personal magic genie. So for the ordinary person, you can think of it in terms of musical instruments. You pluck one string, something else vibrates. But this is something, this scientific example is something which our sages, our ancients have been saying through the years, through the centuries, that separation is not the ultimate state. Oneness is. So for all the healers who've messaged somebody saying, how are you doing? And they say, whoa, this is spooky. I was just thinking of messaging you. I was just thinking, it's happened to you, yeah? It's happened to so many of you. I'm seeing in the chats. It's happened to so many of you. This is quantum entanglement. This is the science of oneness. And because of this, we can talk on the next slide that what we perceive is our reality. What we perceive is our reality. Perception is reality, because there is a reality which is independent of our mind. And that reality is the union of everything, okay? So, okay, two people have a fight. For example, two people have a fight. There's person A's perspective, there's person B's perspective, and there's the truth. It's his version of events and his version of events and the reality of things. So when you're called upon to be the judge or the mediator between party A and party B, you hear both perspectives, right? That's what a judge does. When you're doing a relationship healing and a couple have come to you for solving their problems, you listen to person A's perspective, you listen to person B's perspective, and then you form your own perspective, which is like somewhere in between both the perspectives. Yes or no? Right? So where the scientific research, the noetic sciences, they uncover traces of consciousness that exist beyond matter. Okay? Theosophy. Theo means God. Yeah, Theo means God. And Sophia means knowledge. So theosophy means knowledge of God. We are attempting to understand God or attempting to understand spirituality. So theosophy proclaims the principle of unity, the principle of oneness. So both together, the science on one side and spirituality on the other, they come to one part that there's a division. The division is a surface condition. Your hand is connected to your whole body. You have a passport. Does your hand have a separate passport? No, right? Your right hand doesn't have a separate identity card. It doesn't. You have an entire identity card. Your hand may say, well, I do all the hard work. I do all the typing. I do all the eating. I do all the heavy lifting. Why does the rest of the body get a passport? I'm the one who signed on the application form. So in one sense, it's separate. But you go a little deeper, it's all connected. So the key to oneness, according to Master Choa Kok Sui, the key to oneness means giving up the wrong ideas and an enslavement to lower emotions. What are these lower emotions? Anger, irritation, hatred, jealousy, envy, rigidity, inflexibility, intolerance, lack of trust, lack of faith, preconceived ideas, prejudice. We could go on. Actually, we can't go on because I've just basically set out whatever stuff I remove in my purification practices. So if you think there's more stuff that I need to get rid of, please DM me and I'll be grateful to you. So anyway, the key to oneness is you give up wrong ideas. What is the wrong idea? That you and I are separate. And this is why we share food. So if you see me at a retreat, the key to oneness, we share food. But if all of you do that together, my stomach has limited capacity. So anyway, this is for those who we meet at retreats. You cannot achieve oneness with your higher self without character building, without purification. You must purify, purify, purify. Okay. This is an important part of understanding who we are, what we're supposed to do. And the understanding of ourself takes us to the light. Until we understand that we are spiritual beings connected to other spiritual beings, we'll remain in the darkness. So the question is, how do we go from darkness to light? Hengame, over to you.
Thank you so much, Arko. Now we talk about oneness, and like from the time you start your spiritual practice, we may have heard about it and we may have already know about it, but from time to time, many of us experience that loneliness again or solitude, because evolution is cyclical. As Master Choa says, spiritual evolution is governed by the law of cycles. It is cyclical, but on an upward trend. So in a deeper level of consciousness, there is a series of darkness and light, darkness and light, darkness and greater light. And the dark void as an advanced state of consciousness, as a transition before a significant explosion of light. If any of you have experienced this, please put in the chat, please put yes. Sometimes during the meditation, you see light, okay? So in your inner experience, you see light. But after a while, you may start seeing darkness. And then sometimes you think, how come I'm seeing darkness for a while? And then you may start seeing greater light. I remember there was only one time which I experienced this, and I was volunteering for an Achieving Oneness with the Higher Soul workshop. And there was an event happening, I think, in another country that almost all the other volunteers, everybody left. So I was alone doing all the work for that workshop. And for some of you who know about the Achieving Oneness with the Higher Soul workshop, it's a very spiritual workshop. And it only talks about spiritual topics like why we come to the earth, what is the purpose of my life, questions like this. This is very spiritual. So I was doing everything myself, from registration to preparing breaks to preparing the room and everything, and playing the meditation. So during the meditation, I think it was a Blue Pearl meditation, my consciousness expanded. I started to see series of darkness and light. So whatever here Master Choa says, I experienced, I saw it. And it was like my consciousness was just going through all these series of darkness and then light, darkness, light, darkness, light. And I could just, my consciousness expanded to like a lot of them. And I just passed. And it was really interesting because before that, during meditations, I probably experienced just one. Sometimes it was darkness and then it led to light, or it was just darkness, or it was just light. But I never experienced this series of darkness and light myself. I read about it, but I never experienced it. So this solitude or this loneliness sometimes happen from time to time because through challenges or through certain situations, or because it's like a transition from a state of consciousness to a greater state of consciousness. And it's basically helping us to do more self-reflection, more inner reflection, and grow, evolve, and pass, like move to another state. So it's like they are like thresholds, and helps the soul to move forward in this path of evolution. And as Rumi says, the wound is the place where the light enters you. So we all need this. It's like a training ground. Solitude disciplines the faculties. It quiets the minds, ceaseless chatter, tempers emotional turbulence, and stabilizes the will. So just like as athletes, composers, artists, they all need this moment of silence and solitude to inspire themselves or to come up with new ideas or new artistic work. Everybody needs these moments of silence to do self-reflection, awareness, mindfulness, to know ourselves, and then to develop faster. As Lao Tzu says, he who knows others is wise, but he who knows himself is enlightened. So the inward realization of unity naturally overflows into outward service. So once we really take that moment to do self-reflection, to learn, grow, and understand the connection with all, then we can externalize that into service. Now, we will talk about a few techniques shortly. And when that happens, compassion is no longer just a moral injunction, but a certainty. So it means we actually feel like when we see someone in need, we actually know that we have to do something and we do it. It's not just feeling, sad because someone is going through something, but is actually doing something. In serving others, one perceives the interconnectedness not as a theory, but as a fact. The good of one is inseparable from the good of all. There is a poem by one of the Persian poets who says, we are all part of one whole, body. So if one person feels hurt, sad, or affected, then everybody gets affected. So that is really the true meaning of understanding oneness, that we are all connected. So if one suffers, everybody actually suffers. And solitude leads to oneness in service. Now, how to move from solitude to oneness? There are techniques that can help us to actually, move through this transition fast, make this transition faster. And it starts with deep self-reflection. Arko, back to you. Thank you.
What hurts one hurts the other. When we spend time in solitude, not as an isolation, not the kind in which, okay, do you remember these things from your childhood or from your parents, the stories where if a child misbehaves, they're asked to go sit in the corner and made to think about what they've done? Remember those times? Before, we're talking about long back, okay, not today's day and age in which a child is treated as a young adult. Then why would you call a child a child? Call them adults, right? So think of those days 20, 30, 40, 50 years back, when a child does something wrong and the parents send them to the corner of the room and said, stay there for 2 hours, think about what you've done. Any of you experience that? Any of you are getting memories of those times? Yeah, I can see some of my more experienced audience members raising their hands and smiling. Yeah, right. And this is before we decided that a child is basically a tiny adult. They're not, they're kids. They look to us for guidance. They look to us, our grown-ups, for boundaries, for protection, for help. The world has become a strange place. And this is a part of this deep inner reflection. So when we spend this time, if you think that, all right, we've done something, we go to the corner of the room, we sit down quietly and we think about our entire day, the good things, the not so good things. And we can go deeper. What was about my day that I liked? What was about my day that I did not like? Someone I love, did he or she say something or do something which upset me? And if it upset me, how did I react? Was my reaction proportionate to the problem? Or did I overreact? How many of you identify with this? We can identify when other people have overreacted or they've been very angry and they've had outbursts. But how many times have we asked if our own actions and reactions, we've gone overboard? So we can ask mindfulness, we can ask deeper questions. Who am I? What am I? What is this thing that is happening? okay, we can ask ourselves this deep question: who am I? And then we can write this stuff down. And then, of course, we'll get very bored. So we'll open up our phones and start scrolling on Instagram and start sending reels to our friends again. So we are no longer in solitude. We experience oneness all over. Okay, that part's a joke. But in essence, it's an invitation to spend time by yourself in inner reflection. From this, we go from self-reflection, deep reflection, to the practice of meditation. And for that, I'd request if Hengame can talk about it.
Thank you so much. So we have heard this: heaven is not here or there or anywhere, it is within you. So this means that heaven is a higher state. Heaven is a higher state of consciousness, or the gateway to heaven is within you. Now, there are meditation techniques that can help us experience that heaven while still having a physical body. And that is when the heart and the crown chakra especially activates. There is a meditation by Master Choa Sui called the meditation on blue pearl. That was the meditation that I was doing during the Achieving Oneness with the Higher Soul, which I experienced, those series of light and darkness and light. And I have had a lot more experiences during blue pearl, which is fantastic. But there are also meditations such as Twin Hearts, that can gradually dissolve the sense of separateness by expanding awareness beyond the personal self. Because during meditations such as Twin Hearts, we become a channel to bless every person, every being on earth. And as we are doing this, the crown chakra gets activated. Now, the heart chakra is the center for limited love. Means when the heart gets activated, we love our family members, close friends, people near to us. Crown chakra is called the center for universal love. When the crown chakra gets activated, we start to love everybody without exception. Every person, every being. And as that start to happen, we start to experience glimpse of that, idea of oneness, because we start feeling that love for everyone by becoming a channel to bless every person, every being, and by activating the crown. Now we have this meditation, Twin Hearts group meditation, on most of the Saturday evenings. If you are interested to join, you can check the details either in our groups, in our social media, and join us if you haven't experienced it before. Fantastic meditation. If you do it in a regular basis, then you start experiencing that, glimpse of oneness. Now let's talk about from self to selflessness.
From self to selflessness. When we talk about the esoteric concepts, we talk about the incarnated soul, the higher soul, the divine spark. In theosophical language, we call that, I think, the personality, the ego, and the monad. Now here, I'm just using the word ego, not in terms of the theosophical side, but when you say someone has got a lot of ego, like they have a lot of pride or arrogance, ego, the nature of the mind is to separate. The nature of the mind is to organize everything and put it in boxes. The nature of the soul, which is of love, is to unite. So the nature of the mind is to divide. The nature of the soul is to unite. So you understand that it's your mind which builds your individuality. Right now, there's a huge wave of individuality which is going around in the world, was going around much more in the last few years. Right now, it's not quite as much, but people have to be identified by specific monikers. Okay. So then it's I, me, mine. You have to understand me. If you don't understand me, you are trampling on my rights. There's no oneness, there's no society. And there are certain cultures, there are certain countries where the group is seen as the most important unit. There are certain cultures and countries where the individual is seen as the more important unit. Both of them have their pluses, both of them have their minuses. Here, what we need to do is understand we go beyond just the concept of one person or the group. We understand that spiritually we're one with all. We're spiritually one with every country, every nationality, every religion. Because when we're doing meditation, when we're doing blessings, we say, blessings be to this part of the world, but not that neighboring country. Blessings be to this particular person, but not the person they're fighting with. Don't do that. That's ego. That's bad. That's not good. That's no good. Okay. I bless everybody except my mother-in-law. Someday you'll be someone's mother-in-law and then you will not be blessed. That's bad karma. So don't do that. For those of you who think, haha, I'm a male, I will never be a mother-in-law, the very fact that you're thinking that statement means you're already a mother-in-law, whether you like it or not. Okay. Spiritually, there is only oneness. What you think, you become. All right. By the way, if something has made you laugh, if we don't necessarily say type LOL, please feel free to type LOL or laugh or something. Okay. It makes us know that, all right, you guys are listening through. Okay, so when it comes to the self, we need to kind of get rid of the sense of self, and we can do this by doing things which are different from what we do. We can be generous. We can go out and give food to the people. We can take a lot of our old clothes. Not that one. I'm going to wear that next year. Okay, bell bottoms are going to come back in style after 30 years. That tiny thin pencil short, that's going to come back in style in 2065. So I'm going to hold on to it. You know it. You've been looking at that dress that doesn't fit you anymore, and you know that it's going to fit you next year once you go on your fitness journey, right? Right, of course. So selflessness, yeah, okay, maybe I'll buy a new one next year. Donate, give it away. The attachment to my things, my growth, my items, my family, my ideas. This is my idea. How dare you not listen to my idea? You notice how fights begin with that? And then what happens when you're fighting? Boom. To every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. My idea, my thing, you separate. So it's not about rejecting the ego or saying that selfishness is really bad, but it's more about refining it. You take what you've got, you transmute it and say, all right, you have an idea, I have an idea. Let's see what we can do together. Okay. Using the strength of a person to build a foundation, to build a platform for greater growth and greater things. And the best way, one of the easiest way to do that is realizing that I am not just my thoughts. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not all of this. I am much more. I am the soul. For that, the I am affirmation, which Hengame is going to talk about.
Thank you so much, Arko. So if you study sciences such as Theosophy, and when they talk about the future generations, talks about the generation in future generations, the group or society will be of importance. And so basically, it's not important what we do, but as long as we are part of the community and we do what we're supposed to do or what is our responsibility, that is what is important. So it's not like how much money one person has and so on, but how much contribution the person is doing to the society. So basically the humanity is going from self to more of oneness or selflessness. So these practices just help us, bring our mind, our consciousness more towards that idea of, oneness. Now, the next one is the I am affirmation. Now, the limitations of our brain do not change the reality that to a certain degree, we are connected and one with our higher soul. We are connected and one with God. We are connected and one with all. Now, the I am affirmation by Master Choa Kok Sui can help us detach from the desires of our physical body, emotional body, mental body, and affirm oneness with God and oneness with all. And it helps us build, that type of consciousness that we are actually connected with everyone and not really identify ourselves with only our bodies, our vehicles, physical, emotional, mental. Now, before we move on to the next, let's do the I am affirmation together so you experience how the affirmation is. So I want you to just sit in a receptive pose, relax your body, calm your mind, calm your emotions. Inhale and exhale slowly and deeply. If you want, connect your tongue to your palate and mentally say, I am that I am. I am not the body. I am not the emotions. I am not the thoughts. I am not even the mind. The mind is only a subtle instrument of the soul. I am the soul. I am that I am. I am a spiritual being of divine intelligence, divine love, and divine power. I am connected and one with my higher soul. I am that I am. I am a child of God. I am connected with God. I am one with God. I am one with all. This is the truth, regardless of the capacity of the brain to experience the truth. I am that I am. Now sit still, be aware. Inhale and exhale slowly and deeply. Inhale slowly and deeply and exhale slowly and deeply. I am one with all. And when you are comfortable, gently open your eyes with a big, big smile. Now, how do you feel? We just did it once, but you can repeat it several times, especially when you're really struggling with a certain thought, emotion, or certain challenge that is happening in your life. It helps to detach and then focus on what is real, what is unreal. You know, like you detach from what is unreal, focus on what is real. So, did anyone feel that when we were saying this affirmation, you started feeling much bigger than your physical body? You started feeling bigger than your physical body. If yes, please put yes in the chat. Yes, why that happens is because when we start detaching from the physical body, emotional body, mental body, our consciousness expand, and then you start feeling yourself much bigger, because we are the soul. We are much bigger than the limitation of the bodies. And as we are doing this, we experience that oneness with everyone. Okay, so keep doing this, especially when you are in a difficult situation. It really helps to calm the mind, the emotions, and affirm that I am the soul, I am connected and one with all, connected and one with God, and empowers us basically. Okay, now let's talk about the last two, study of universal truth. Arko, back to you.
Thank you, Hangame. I am feeling good. I am feeling refreshed. When we study universal truths, according to Master Chokkoksu in his study of Arhatic Yoga, how many of you have done Arhatic Yoga? If you could just write AY in the chats. Those who have done Arhatic Yoga, AY, 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 AY. Yeah, not yeah, AY, all right? So I, all those who've done Arhatic Yoga, say I, all right? Okay, so for those of you who've done Arhatic Yoga, that's quite a bit of you. You know one of the pillars of Arhatic Yoga is study. Now, many people say book study. That's not what the teacher said. He said study. Study. What do you study? You can study your own thoughts. You can study your own emotions. You can study the way the world moves. You can study your credit card bill and wonder why you've spent so much this month. And you can study so many things. When you spend time, I'll give you a personal example. I have to travel a lot. I have to travel a lot on work. And if you are following me on Instagram, you know that there are plenty of stories that are going up there about travel and food and meetings and stuff. A lot of my thinking happens 10,000 feet up in the air. A lot of my thinking happens 10, 14, 15, 30,000 feet up in the air on a plane as I'm sitting over there and my phone is off and I'm looking outside and just wondering about things. It's a good thing to just switch off. So the question I'm going to ask you, and please be honest with yourself on this one. When was the last time you really switched off? I'm not talking about your phone or your laptop or your TV. When was the last time you actually switched your mind off from the everyday struggle, whether it's about home or work or family or whatever else that's going on in life? When did you give yourself that time to disconnect from the chaos of every day and sit down? Not very many answers, right? Not very many people. It's a quiet chat room right now. It's a quiet chat room, just 2, 3, 4. And if someone says, during my sleep, I envy you, most people, our brains, they're really occupied. Some of you will say it's meditation, but my question is, when was this time that you allocated to yourself outside of meditation, outside of sleeping, and you just sat down with yourself to be? That you sat down to experience being, thinking, working, traveling. When was the last time you experienced being? One of the things that Master Choa talks about, experiencing being. Just be with yourself, be by yourself. Even the books of the teacher, the titles of the books have a lot of depth in them. You go beyond the mind and you start experiencing being. Interesting stuff, right? So you can study all of these things, whether you're studying scientific journals or medical discoveries or anything. Spending that time by yourself in understanding is a great way of connecting to the world internally and the world externally. Found this part interesting? Found this part about being interesting? If yes, just give us a thumbs up. Give us a thumbs up. Write a thumbs up. Write yes on the chat. Okay? Because we're now almost at the end of the session. I'll request Hengame to talk about the sharing component of all of this.
Thank you so much. And the last topic to discuss is engage in service and sharing. This is one of the ways that actually help us focus so much from the self to helping others, to others, not to ourselves. So selfless service transforms self-focus into connectedness. By uplifting others, one directly experiences the interdependence of life. So when we do service, what happens is energetically, it expands the heart chakra, increasing compassion and connection with others. Now, how many of you do regular service? It could be charity work. It could be doing healing in like a free healing clinic or free healing camp. It could be guiding meditation sessions, something that you do to help others, not for yourself. Okay, some people do service because they want to feel good about themselves, but some people really do service just to help others. How many of you do that regularly? Please put yes in the chat. And when you do service, how many of you feel good? Because when we really do it to help others, and when you do healing on someone and you see them smile, you see them feel better, you see many of them cry in the first healing that you do for them, how many of you feel that heart chakra activating? And then you start feeling more compassion and you feel connected with people and you start seeing yourself in them and you start feel, connected with everyone in that group. So energetically, by activating the heart, you feel happier, you feel more peaceful, but you also feel more connected because it also activates the crown. Now, psychologically, it shifts the center of identity from the ego to the soul, which is naturally inclusive. So if you do service regularly, you start experiencing that when people come for healing, for meditation, for whatever service you do, if you do like feeding the hungry or whatever you do, you really don't care who is coming. You just want to serve. It's not important what is the race, what is the religion, what is the color of the skin. We just want to give to whoever is willing to take, right? So it actually, from the self, we start focusing on others. From the ego, we start focusing on the soul. And therefore, we start to be more inclusive. And that is going more towards oneness. And spiritually, it awakens the recognition that we are all part of one life. By uplifting others, we indirectly uplift ourselves because separation is ultimately an illusion. That is why when you do service, you actually feel good, you feel blissful, because again, spiritually we are one. As we give, we receive. I experience a lot of time, like when I start to feel a certain, like let's say I start to feel my neck is getting painful because I've been doing a lot of physical work. Interestingly, a lot of people come for healing with neck or shoulder pain. And then as I'm doing healing for them, I start to feel better, because again, as you give, you will receive. Recently, I started to feel a bit of pain on my right side of the body again, because I was doing a lot of physical work with my right hand. And there were like a couple of people coming with pain on the right side of either the head, the hand, the face. I started again to feel like this is very interesting. And as I'm doing healing for them, they feel better. My pain just goes away. That is amazing, because again, as you give, you will receive. Try to be more available to do service. It's not, like when it comes to helping others, service, sharing spiritual work, we just need to be available, because we are just an instrument. You don't need to worry about thinking that I'm not qualified, I might not be qualified, I'm not the best person to do this. There are so many people who are wiser, more intelligent, more loving, more willful than me. But availability is important, and the higher beings work through us. We have all experienced that, especially people who do service regularly experience that. A lot of the time when you do something and the impact is great, I know that it's not me, it's not us, but we were actually helped. And there are a lot of higher beings who need instruments to actually help others. So please just make yourself available. You will see the miracles that we are talking about. Okay, and with that, thank you so much for joining the session. Arko, please finish, do the remembering and finishing the session and Thanksgiving. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. There's a popular yogic story in India. Many of you may have heard this. There was a student who was looking for illumination, and he went to this teacher who was sitting on the bank of a river. And he asked the teacher, I want to be enlightened, I want to be illuminated. So the teacher grabbed him by the neck, grabbed him by the head, and dunked his head into the water. Okay, nanked his head into the water, goes up, dunks him back into the water again, comes back up. And he asked the student, when you were underwater, what did you want the most in the world? Money, glamour, fame, fortune, people? What did you want? He said, I just wanted air. If you desire illumination as much as you desire air, you will have it. So if you want to think that you are alone, you are separate, no one understands you, the universe will say, so be it, you got it. You want to keep thinking, I am misunderstood, I am struggling, I'm in pain, you got it. You want to think that you are spiritually one with all? Congratulations, you got it. Many of you join in our sessions. One of you made it possible for more people to join the sessions. And for that, we are grateful. Giving us this opportunity to gather together, to do service, bringing these talks to you. Yes, the donations make it possible. I'll request everyone over here to raise their hands and reach for their credit cards. No, you do that part later. I want you to raise your hands and reach for activating your heart. There are many areas in the world which are affected by floods and other calamities, especially right now. There's, I think, a problem going on in Hong Kong, in the Philippines. There are issues happening in India with more heavy rain water alerts which are there. So all the areas which are affected by flooding, which are affected by these natural calamities. Together, let's bring our hands on chest level in the blessing position. We'll do this again on Saturday. Let India, Philippines, Taiwan, Hong Kong, let all the communities facing hardships, let all the regions of the world affected by typhoons, by excessive rain, by landslides, by flooding, all areas of planet Earth which are affected by natural calamities. All areas of planet Earth affected by natural calamities, let they be soothed, let them be healed. Let every person, every being who's undergoing suffering be healed. May all the animals who've been washed away, may all those animal mothers who gave birth and helplessly watched their pups float away in front of them in the floods. Blessings be to those souls as well. Blessings be to all those who are feeling helpless. Where there's despair, let there be hope. Fill the planet with the sense of hope, with a sense of renewal. Let Mother Earth be blessed with good air, good water, good earth, and good people. Blessings be to each and every one of them. So be it. So be it. So be it. To the Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, to my spiritual teacher, Master Choa Sui, to all the spiritual teachers, and saints and prophets of all traditions, to all the holy gurus, masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, to all the beings of light and spiritual helpers, to my higher soul, to my divine self, thank you for your priceless blessings of divine light, love, and power, for healing, inner healing, physical healing, psychological healing, spiritual healing. Thank you for your divine help, divine guidance, divine protection. We thank you for giving us this opportunity to gather together as a group, for improving our understanding, for doing service in a spirit of oneness. We thank you in full faith. Thank you. With deep gratitude, with deep, deep respect, and lots of love, with all our love, we thank you in full faith. Thank you, everyone, for joining in and making yet another session possible. See you for the next one.
Thank you so much, everyone. If you are joining the meditation, it will be this Saturday. If not, see you in the next soulful session. Thank you. Bye.